So today we will go through the chapter 17, which is the penultimate chapter, where Krishna actually tells us that you have a choice to decide what to do, and he's going to give us all the choices. It's actually kind of an understanding of Maya of chapter 14, that is the material modes of nature. So we get a clearer understanding of the three material modes of nature in this chapter. It is frequently explained how the entire material world is made up of the three modes. So let's, is my screen visible?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Since chapter 17 is small, we'll quickly go through the chapter 17 and then we'll revise the all the chapters leading up to chapter 18 so that tomorrow we can work on chapter 18, which is again a summary of the entire Gita. So these 2 days will be basically a revision of the entire Gita for all of us. And let me thank all of you for giving me this opportunity to associate with all of you, such highly elevated devotees. And I'm assure you that I'm doing my best to reach up to make it a fruitful morning for all of you taking your time to spend here. I would like to first begin by paying my obeisances to the Shri Radha Govinda Temple of ISKCON Mangalore. On behalf of ISKCON Mangalore, we are starting this chapter 17 today. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Knananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I pay my humble obeisances to the founder Acharya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and his disciple, His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Guru Maharaj, his disciple, Temple President, His Grace Namnishta Prabhu, and my gurus, that is Aisvarya Mataji as well as Rashmi Mataji. And I really hope that every word I say today is entirely based on this Srila Prabhupada's words and nothing else. So we begin this Shraddha Traya Vibhaga Yoga. Shraddha, like faith, Traya, three, Vibhaga, the divisions, and Yoga, communion with the Lord. The three divisions of faith. So this chapter is divided at the beginning with 17.1 and 2, setting the principles. And then from 17.3 itself, Krishna actually talks about the aspects of lifestyle. So it's quite modern over here. You can see Krishna is actually telling you all the concerns of today's modern society. Where what do we eat? What do we, how do we behave? How should our words be? What are the thoughts we should have? Why are we so stressed? What to do about it? So Krishna actually deals with all these problems very beautifully, and he's giving us complete guidelines starting from what should we eat. So I remember Rashmi Mataji in these classes, she always talks about, she expresses the surprise and amazement that Krishna actually directs us what we should eat, starting from, every aspect of our life. He is guiding us, so that's why we keep telling that Gita is the manual of human life. And many people who don't read the Gita are just going about their life without even having the manual. So we compare it to like people who buy, suppose, a very expensive mobile and then like an iPhone, and then they just use it maybe just as a book weight, as a paperweight, and they are not realizing what is the purpose of this. So we have gone through 184,000 species, and at last we have got this human birth, which is so precious, and we are not even realizing the purpose of it, and we're just wasting it away simply because we're not reading the Bhagavad Gita, which is giving us a complete manual of how to live life, and Krishna offers us all the choices along with the consequences. And then we have the conclusion of this Shraddha Traya Vibhaga. Krishna will explain the lifestyle choices and the consequences in this chapter. So the chapter 17, the chapter 17, the synopsis is therefore, it starts with chapter 16. Let's go back to chapter 16 where Krishna is explaining in detail. Yesterday we discussed all the divine qualities that elevate one on the tree, which is there in chapter 15. In chapter 15, Krishna talks about this inverted tree and he says that, our actions lead us to go upwards and downwards. So some roots are going upwards, some roots are going downwards. And it is every choice that we make and every action that we take that we go up or down. And chapter 16 also explains the demonic qualities, the mentality of those which drives them to the lower part of the tree and ultimately to hell. And we see how Krishna categorically declares that anyone who is got the demonic quality, which is principally not following the scriptural injunctions and not able to see Krishna as God and just considering Krishna as an ordinary person who has achieved some yogic siddhis. And so such people who are demonic, and what happens, what are the consequences, how they have to keep on coming and taking birth after birth. They have to take, birth in all these different species. So, and then Krishna ends by asking, in which category does a man fit who follows his faith with something? Now, here in this last blue slot, what we're looking at is how Arjuna comes to get the doubt. So, let's look at chapter 4. In chapter 4, 39th verse, Krishna had said, Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. He says that Shraddhavan labhate jnanam tatpara sanyatendriyaha jnanam labdhva param shante machirena digachati. So Krishna is saying that a faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses is eligible to achieve the knowledge, and he achieves it really quickly. Achirena means he achieves it really quickly. Then once again, in the 16th chapter, when he concludes, he says that you should understand what is duty, what is not duty, and when you know this, you will be gradually elevated. So Arjuna is getting this doubt, obviously, that someone who has a strong faith, who's not following the scriptures, but who has a strong faith, what happens of him? So that is what Arjuna's first question begins. So once more, looking at the whole of chapter 17 before we dive into it. So we have Arjuna is asking about the unauthorized worship. So he's saying, what if somebody is so passionately devoted? There are people who invent their own religions and then they don't follow the scriptures at all, but they just create something and they're so fondly passionate about it. What happens to them? And Lord Krishna answers beautifully that everything is divided into three modes, including faith. So everything is, Krishna explains in fact every aspect of this entire universe in this Bhagavad Gita. It's so amazing. And we can see how he talks about the faith that one is born into and that one takes up is entirely based on the mode that he has acquired based on his previous actions and his desires. So even faith is divided based on the three modes. That's what we come to know from the verses 2 to 7. And then, like I told you, we have this food is also described in detail by Lord Krishna. He explains to us about the three modes, food in three modes. And he explains to us about the sacrifice in this chapter, about the sacrifices are in three modes. He talks about austerity, of three kinds of austerity. That is mind, speech, and body. And then he again explains about the three modes of austerity. That is, austerity also comes in the three modes. And then he speaks about charity. Charity is also in three modes. So these are the three important pillars that we need to continue having, even if we don't we reach a stage of not doing karma. Sacrifice, austerity, and charity are the three everyone in this material world has to continue doing. And they are also all three have got three different modes of, based on the mode that the person acquires from his previous karma and his desires and Krishna's sanction. So, and finally, the chapter ends with Om Tat Sat, that is, sacrifice, charity, and austerity should be offered to the Supreme Lord always. And that is how this chapter is all about. It's basically offering us a lot of choices. And Arjuna says that in 17.1, we begin with Arjuna asking, Oh Krishna, what is the situation of one who does not follow the principles of scripture, but worships according to his own imagination? Is he in goodness, or is he in passion, or is he in ignorance? Because after all, he is worshipping and he is, he's having such a lot of faith, and emotion into it. He's putting all his emotions into it. And Krishna answers, Trividha bhavati shraddha devinam sa svabhavaja satviki rajasi chaiva tamasi chetitam shrunu. So Krishna says that the Supreme Lord says, according to the modes of nature acquired by the embodied soul, one's faith can be of three kinds: goodness, passion, or ignorance. Now, hear about these. So, we can see here how you can start, either with Sattva Gun. So, those who are in Sattva Gun only will be able to start moving towards Bhakti. And then, when you are in Sattva Gun and you're doing all the good deeds, you get Jnana, and then you reach to Mukti, you get the Brahman realization, and then you become a Jnani. And that's when you will start moving towards, you understand Bhakti also. And but whereas those who are, there is no chance of those who are in Tamogun to ever come to this, in the near future. But those who are in the Rajogun, they're doing all their karmas, they have the karma, they have all these desires due to which they're doing it, and therefore they will go to Swarga Loka since they're doing good deeds for the sake of that, and they are the karmis. And those who are after the Jnani stage, they actually understand Bhakti automatically. Bhakti and Jnana are very much related. Those who have Bhakti will automatically, Krishna says that I will be the lamp in your heart and I will give you the knowledge. And those who work towards knowledge, Krishna likes them best because he knows that they are already got the Gyan, and now it is just a matter of time they will soon get Krishna Bhakti. And that is the highest form of realization, which we had also seen yesterday. We have the first the Brahman form of realization, and then we move towards the Paramatma. So when people are constantly meditating, they will be able to realize the Paramatma within their own hearts. And then the final and the highest stages, when they are able to understand that actually the Lord is a person, and that's when they're able to communicate so passionately with Krishna, and they want to know more about him. And that's why we're all here, because we all want to know more about Krishna. We want to hear about Krishna. We want to fill our lives with Krishna all the time. That we want to reach the ultimate Shuddha Sattva stage, and that is what we are all looking forward to. So, and how do we get these different types of faith? It's entirely based on the modes that we have acquired from all our previous actions. So, this nature can be changed, even if you're in any other mode. Krishna says it's very beautiful to understand, to have this hope that from any mode you can reach a Shuddha Sattva simply by association of a bona fide spiritual master. And we are all grateful to Namnishta Prabhu because of the COVID times. We came in contact with Namnishta Prabhu. His classes were the first that I got to attend, and otherwise there was no way that this beautiful knowledge of Bhagavad Gita would have ever revealed. I cannot say it is revealed fully. I'm still a very, very beginner, and I'm only getting to learn as Bhakti Shastri student of Aisvarya Mataji. I'm just beginning, but it is already so beautiful, and I'm sure you will all agree with elevated devotees that that's why we are here early in the morning, right? And so the association of a bona fide spiritual master is all that is needed. And once you surrender to the Guru and you are open to accept the knowledge, you're ready to surrender. He will explain to you how Krishna is everything, and you get, that you will get closer and closer to the final destination of the human life. So in 17.3, thereafter, Krishna is talking about, according to one's existence under the various modes of nature, one evolves a particular kind of faith, and the living being is said to be of a particular faith according to the mode he has acquired. So he's again, reinforcing that the faith and the modes, how they are so related. And it was stated in chapter 15 that we are all actually a part of, chapter 15 in Purushottam Yoga, Krishna clearly explains how we are all a part and parcel of the a fragmental part and parcel of Krishna himself. But we have forgotten it, and it is due to, of so many generations that we have forgotten that we have come because of association with material nature, the material world. That's why we are here, and we need to be cleansed of this, material contamination. And that is possible only through, in the Kali Yuga, through chanting. So, following the footsteps of Rashmi Mataji, I also want to keep on reinforcing that chanting. Chanting is very, very important. And my favorite is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shishtastakam. It begins with Chetu Darpanamarjanam Bhava Mahadava Vinirvapanam Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam. So he says Cheto Darpana Marjanam. So Cheto is a heart, Darpanam is a mind, Marjanam is cleaning. And so Krishna will, by chanting, you will be able to clean that mirror, and all the material contamination will go, and we will be able to start reaching that this, the jnana and then the bhakti, prema, shuddha sattva, all these things will start revealing to us and we will come to it only by chanting. So let's all continue this, focusing all our attention on developing the habit of chanting so that even at the moment of death, I pray that all of us are able to chant and the names of Krishna come and we are able to chant and we're able to go back to Vaikuntha, all of us. We're able to go back to Goloka better still. But that's a very high ambition and, let's not give up anyway. So from 17.3 to 17.22, we see the aspects of lifestyle. So Krishna actually talks about faith and worship, which we just heard, food, the different rituals, the conduct, speech, mind control, charity, and it's all about the choices that we make. So let me just give going through a quick example. For example, Vibhishan, Ravana, and Kumbhakarna. Ravan, he wanted immortality. So, he doesn't want to supersede God himself. Brahma says, even I am not immortal, the body that we have to give it up. We can't be in this body all the time. That is the first principle. Only the soul is eternal. And Ravan, when he asks for that, Brahma says, okay, I can't give you that. You can ask for something else. And Ravan says, give me invincibility and immunity from all the devatas, rakshasas, heavenly spirits, serpents, wild beasts. But he thinks human beings are very paltry, they're so weak. And he doesn't even think that he needs to ask. And that is why, Krishna comes as Rama and he kills Ravan. And Kumbhakarna, what did he do? He actually was, Indra was himself afraid of Kumbhakarna because Kumbhakarna, he knew, wanted the position of Indra. So when he wanted to ask for Indrasana, throat of Indra had asked Saraswati to play with the words. And instead of asking for Indrasana, he asked for Nidrasana, state of sleep. Instead of asking for Nirdevatvam, that is, there should be no existence of devatas at all, he asked for Nidravatvam. So he's asking for Nidra all the time. And and he realized that he has made a slip of a tongue. So how important are the words that you speak? He just makes that mistake and the boon is immediately granted. And Kumbhakarna realizes and he says, please undo this. Even Ravan asks on behalf of Kumbhakarna, please, this is actually a curse, please undo it. But once it is given, it cannot be reversed. And therefore, he says, okay, I'll just make it a little milder. You won't sleep all the time, but you sleep for 6 months and then you will get up and again eat lots and go back to sleep. So, that way Indra was safe because of with the help of Saraswati. Vibhishan was an unusual Rakshasa. He revered dharma, righteousness. So he just prayed that he should always be able to uphold dharma, and Brahma granted his prayer. So why I brought this slide up here is that basically it's all about choices, and the choices come from the modes that we are in already, which comes from the different activities that we have been engaged in our previous lifetimes and where we are right now. So that's why every moment we need to be aware of all our thoughts, our words, our actions, because they are all important. So we are the sum total of all the choices we make every millisecond of our life. So in 17.4, Krishna says, Yajante satvika devan, yaksha rakshas shamsi rajasa, Vetan bhuta ganam chanye yajante tamasa janaha. So he says, men in the mode of goodness, they worship demigods. Those who are in the mode of passion, they worship the demons. And those in the mode of ignorance, they worship the ghosts and spirits. So in this, actually, sometimes you wonder, how do the people in the Rajogun, how do they worship demons? Why? They do actually. I have seen so many instances where the places where I work, you see people literally boot taking and going after their bosses and pleasing them and doing anything to please the boss. They're not understanding that whatever they have is because of Krishna. And they're not understanding that the job they have and everything they have is only and only because of Krishna. They are feeling that, they have to please their bosses. They have to make them very happy. They have to please the politicians. They have to, so these are all the demons of this world who don't believe in Krishna. Anyone who doesn't follow the scriptures, who doesn't understand that Krishna is God, who doesn't have this sattva gun and this or this shuddha sattva gun, they are all demons. So what do the people in Rajogun do? They are worshipping all these different demons in the world. Rashi Mataji uses this term, forget stupid people. She uses one term, instead of worshipping all these idiots or these stupid people, you should understand that you should worship Krishna himself. Even in the mode of goodness, they're not yet reached there. They're just very happy because they're getting, when they worship the demigods, they're getting what they want. So they are peaceful, they are happy, and they're conditioned. So these are all conditions. We are getting conditioned by the mode of goodness. We're getting conditioned by the mode of passion, getting conditioned by the mode of ignorance. Mode of ignorance, of course, they are simply blind. They don't want to believe with the soul. They want to close their eyes. They don't want to see Krishna. And all they want to do is they end up going to all these ghosts and spirits and these black magic and all, sorts of things. And because they actually think they are having a false ego. They think that I am the one who is doing all these things. They're not realizing that without Krishna's sanction, nothing happens. There was one more point I wanted to make, but it's just slipped my mind. So let's move to 17.5. Yeah, so here we are seeing that those who are in the mode of ignorance, they are worshiping all these ghostly spirits, and we actually see that whatever you worship, you reach there. It's not like you take a ticket suppose to Bombay and you can reach Calcutta. If you want to go to Bombay, you have to take a ticket to Bombay. Similarly, Krishna is saying, fine, whatever you pray, ultimately you will come to me. That is, after so many births, you may come to me when you follow all the other different kinds of faiths. Only when you actually directly pray to Krishna, you can reach Krishna Loka. Otherwise, if suppose you pray to the ghosts and the spirits, you will reach the ghostly planets. You can't reach anywhere else. If you're going to be constantly praying to the demons and pleasing them, you'll go to hell or the lower planets, or you'll get bodies of the lower lower animals or the lower planets. And if you're going to be praying to demigods, you won't get Krishna. He makes it so clear over here. People who are praying to different demigods, they go to the different either heavenly planets or the different places where the demigods are residing. For example, those who pray to Shiva, they will be going to the Rudra Loka. And then any of these, it's all in the material world. Every single demigod, up to Brahma, who's the highest creator, he is also representative of Krishna. Up to everything is the material world, and they all have to go through these, old age, disease, death. Even Indra has to actually is just a position, and all these are just positions, and they all have to again, they all have their life. It's clearly given in the scriptures how long, and Brahma is of course a very long lifetime, and at the end they have to give up, and then there's a Brahma who's suitable comes up, and if there is no, Krishna takes a position. So we have to understand that we have to make our choices. If we are going to be praying to the different demigods, we will attain heaven. And if you're going to pray to Krishna, and then that is only when we are able to reach the spiritual world of Krishna Loka. And the spiritual world is like 3/4. The material world is only 1/4. And we'll be able to reach that vast, immense Krishna Loka, where we are given up our gross bodies, we've given up our material bodies. It's only possible when we give up all our desires, all our sense of proprietorship. And it's a very high standard that we have to reach to reach Krishna Loka, which is what we all are. Because now the knowledge is there, we shouldn't, not try. We have to, give it our best shot simply by chanting. So by definition, there can be only one supreme, obviously. And don't get shortchanged. Don't settle for less than you deserve. So be in Shuddha Sattva. Try to rise. Krishna tells us, rise above all the three modes. And it's just, I'll just remember what I wanted to say. So these are all chains. They're conditioning. And we are getting conditioned. So Tamogun may be like an iron chain. And, the Rajogun may be like your silver or chain. And then Sattvagun is simply a gold chain, but it's a chain all the same. So we need to rise above all these three and reach the position of Shuddha Sattva, where we are in the position of Sarvadharman Paratyajya. We are just giving ourselves only to Krishna so that we reach Krishna, possible by chanting. So the best form of worship, that when you do any devotional service to Krishna, the Lord of the universe, or Vishnu, or Narayana, Guruvayurappa, when we are giving ourselves to the ultimate Krishna, who has got so many different, he has also so many different forms. You can pray to Rama, whichever one, but the highest, that is Krishna's and Krishna Rupas, if you can pray and you can worship. Deity worship is another way of doing devotional service. Simply chanting is the best way. And if you're going to do that, you will slowly reach, you'll be in Shuddha Sattva, where in this body itself, we can start enjoying Vaikuntha, that is a state of no worries. So there is a question which comes in the mind. There is only one God. Okay, then why are there many religions? So here we understand that as a natural instinct is different based on the mode. That's the reason why there are so many different religions. And the essential message is actually the same. They all lead to God. They all lead to God. The names may be different. And Krishna does tell us that, there are actually so many avatars and so many expansions that no one, actually even he himself, he reveals somewhere in the Bhagavatam that cannot understand because he's constantly expanding. And so the details may vary depending on the audience. That is why. So, we need not worry. Krishna is taking care of everyone. He is a father, the grandfather, the mother, the guru of everyone, and he will be leading every sitting in everyone's hearts. We need not worry. Let's just reach the state of Shuddha Sattva so that we can be in a position to spread this beautiful knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, especially to those who are who are willing to take it. And if somebody is not, I think we should just understand that Krishna is taking care of them. So we just do our business of talking about Krishna and basically trying to be in devotee association. And I'm so fortunate to be able to speak today to all of you. Now let's look at 17.5 and 6, where now Krishna starts talking about austerities. He says that there are many people who do austerities which are so severe, which is not in the scriptures at all, which is not supposed to be done. So those who undergo severe austerities and penances not recommended in the scriptures, why are they doing it? They are not doing it because of selflessness or the sense of surrender to Krishna or anything. They are doing it basically out of pride, out of egotism, lust, attachment, and they're impelled by a passion. And so they torture their bodily organs as well as the super soul dwelling within. And such people are, really the demons. And we have so many examples here, Hiranyakashipu, and we have all these. Just now I spoke about how Ravana and all of them, right? How they were actually performing the different austerities for the sake of themselves. Now let's move on to the 17.7. 17.7, Krishna starts speaking about the food. He says, food which is in the mode of goodness, it increases the duration of life and it purifies one's existence and gives strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. And what are they basically? If the food that you're eating is like fresh, sweet, juicy, fattening, palatable, if these, they're wholesome, pleasing, then you know that they are the food in Sattva Gun, which we all know what they are. Foods that are too bitter, sour, salty, pungent, dry, hot. These are all food which are liked by people in the modes of passion. And food which causes pain, distress, and disease, which are cooked more than 3 hours before being eaten, tasteless, stale, putrid, decomposed, unclean. It should not be eaten. Obviously, it's referring to meat. Is food which is liked by people in the mode of ignorance. So here we have a nice, tasty, delicious. Now Onam is coming, so I'm reminded of the Ona Sadhya. So we have this Sattva Gun filled food over here. And then we have these are all Sattva. This is the fiery one, which is full of all the spices and all. So these are all these, like the Cheetos, the burger and pizza, all these things are all of Rajogun. And here we have cheese. I don't have the video live, I think, where you have the worms actually coming and people like to have them. They store these things which get fermented over days together. And then, they're having this because they're in the mode of ignorance. So that's the reason. Here I have this video in this slide. So we have actually people eating these things where you have live worms moving about. So these are people in the mode of ignorance. They enjoy this simply because of their previous actions and desires. Their predominant mode is that of tamogun. So we have to remember always you are what you eat. And I want to just share at this point, that I have just been able to give up onion, garlic, tea, coffee. And I stopped non-vegetarian about a year ago. Till then, I was a non-vegetarian as well. I am so grateful to the ISKCON Mangalore and to all the different lectures that I'm constantly hearing and so addicted to. And I'm sure many of you will agree with me that you are also addicted. We love to hear and talk about Krishna, and that has given us a strength to understand that we are what we eat, and we eat, food. Not only that, we actually not only eating food in sattva, in the sattva, the food which is good in the goodness mode of. So let's just look at this slide. You get home after a long day and you see these kind of foodstuffs. What kind of foodstuffs? You see, all these very quickly available food stuff on your table. Do you eat it or do you get grossed out? So you can figure out, are you in Rajogun? Are you in Sattvagun? Are you in Shuddha Sattvagun? What if you're famished? Still, what is it that you will do? So this is the, lust and love. So when you develop love for Krishna, then you reach the stage where you become prasadatarians. I'm sure many of you have already, I think almost all of you are already prasadatarians. I am a little bit still struggling because sometimes I don't get to actually eat prasada, but I definitely stick to food and I definitely pray before I eat, but I have still to reach the stage of having only prasada. So cooking with God consciousness. Actually, it is unbelievable. There are some, I've heard about some of these many great, highly elevated devotees who can actually understand the moment they put the food in their mouth, they can understand it was cooked by a person who is Krishna conscious, or it was cooked by somebody who is not Krishna conscious. They can, the consciousness actually gets passed on to the food. So they say that if somebody who has got a lot of stress or who's in Rajo, who's predominantly in Rajogun or Tamogun is cooking for you, even that consciousness gets passed on and comes and affects your consciousness. So that is how intricate it is. Actually, when you even look at this cycle of sacrifice, we can understand that all these emotions and the things we do and the sacrifices we do, including the japa, is all also intricately connected. We don't know that. We can't see that. Doesn't mean it's not there. So when you offer your food to Krishna with love and devotion, that is the correct mood for offering. And then you honor the Krishna Prasad. And then the results of taking Krishna Prasad is that you basically become closer to being in Shuddha Sattva, which is what we are striving for right now, because we have understood that the goal of human life is to get away from this material world, which is a dukkhalayam. And then let's move on to 17.11, where we look at sacrifices. What are the types of sacrifices? So of different sacrifices or yajnas, that sacrifice performed according to duty and following the scriptural regulations with no expectation of any reward is the nature of goodness. And of course, the highest sacrifice for Kali Yuga is clearly the japa. But that sacrifice which is performed for some material end or benefit. So you can see so many people doing pujas at home, they do homas and so many things. It's clearly they have a goal, they have a material end in mind, and some of them they simply want to show, do an ostentatious show, and they want to show that they are, the businesses are doing well, and they want the more mercy of the demigod so that it does even better. And so all these sort of sacrifices are in the nature of passion. And sacrifices which are performed entirely in defiance of scriptural injunctions, where there is no spiritual food distributed, no hymns are chanted, Krishna is not remembered, no remunerations are given to priests. They are faithless people who are doing these sacrifices, are in the mode of ignorance. So we have this very famous example of Bhasmasura, I think, Bhasmasura, where he prays to Lord Shiva. And he says that anybody whose head I will put my hand on should be turned to ashes. And then after getting that boon, Shiva says, okay, so be it. So that's how quickly pleased we have these demigods. They become quickly pleased. And that's why people like to approach the demigods. And so then he says, let me try it out on you. And then he starts going after Shiva. And then we have at last, Shiva had to be helped by Vishnu himself, who had to come and she takes the form of a beautiful damsel and puts her hand on herself, and he is so enamored by her that finally he puts his hand. He says, okay, he puts his hand on himself. Anyway, and someone was saying something. Hare Krishna. Okay, am I audible? I'm just moving on and on. I hope I'm
Yes,
audible.
Mataji, you are.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Say Krishna.
Sorry. Yes, so sacrifices are also on these three modes. Mode of goodness is when you do it out of duty, absolutely no expectation of any result. Like how we sit and do japa, you just find a place of you're a worthy person and you're praying to Krishna. That is the mode of goodness. The mode of passion, you expect returns, you want some enjoyment, and you're in the grudging mood. You do find that these people who are doing that, they're not able to be at peace. And then those who do sacrifices in the mode of ignorance, since the place is also improper, the time is improper, and the person who is doing it is also an unworthy person. And in fact, they don't even pray to demigods. They pray to these different ghosts and stuff. Austerity of body, speech, and mind is what we're going to look into next. They are also in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So we have reached now the verse 17.14, almost towards the end, and we have time to do the whole revision of the Bhagavad Gita, all chapters today. So chapter 7, the verse 17.14 says, Kirti Mataji, would you like to read this verse?
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Deva Dvija Guru Prajna Pujanam Shauchamarjavam Brahmacharyam Ahimsacha Shariram Tapa Uchyate.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. So here we begin with austerity of the body. So I was talking about how Krishna speaks about austerity in two ways. One is the three types of austerity: austerity of the body, austerity of speech, and austerity of the mind. And then he talks about austerity in Sattvagun, Rajogun, and Tamagun. So we begin with austerity of the body. He said it consists in this: worship of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmanas, the spiritual master, and superiors like father and mother. Cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence are all parts of austerity of the body. So we have discussed many of these yesterday also. So we'll not elaborate on that. And there are some people who do austerity of the body. They self-torture, they threaten others, and they torture others to get their way. And these are detrimental to the human part of our life. So we are not supposed to do things which are harmful to our body. Austerity of speech. Kirti Mataji once more. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Anudvegakaram vakyam satyam priya hitam chayat swadhyayabhyasanam chaiva vangmayam tapa uchyate.
So this is austerity of speech. After austerity of body, Krishna is explaining how you should be austere in your speech. You have to speak always truthfully, consistent speaking truthfully and beneficially, avoiding any speech that offends. Do not speak anything that you feel may offend someone. Right? You should of course be reciting, chanting, and the Vedas. For us, of course, the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam are everything related to the scriptures. And here we have a picture of Maharaj Yudhishthira. He was known to be somebody who speaks truthfully. And recently, I can share, because we do have a little time, I can share this beautiful lecture I had heard where there's a reference of Krishna saying Sarva Dharman Parityajya. And Krishna takes away, recently in Purushottam, we have all been doing the Chaurashtakam also. And Krishna actually takes away everything, including the sense that I am good, I am truthful. And Krishna actually makes Yudhishthira give up his feeling that I am the most truthful person by making him say that Ashwatthama has died in the Mahabharata war. And, he says Ashwatthama, and softly the elephant, has died, but he's actually, not saying the truth. And he makes him give up that, because even every single dharma you have to leave and just give yourself to Krishna. That's it. That's it. Krishna says, give yourself to me. That's all you have to do, And so this is a very beautiful story. I'm reminded when I look at Yudhishthira and his being famous to be the truthful person who speaks only the truth. So truth also, we have many lectures where they describe about how, the importance of this story I'm reminded of, where someone a sannyasi was praying. If somebody knows the names, you can share. I just remember the story. And someone is running after to find somebody else to kill him. And he comes and reaches the sannyasi. He knows that the purpose of this person who's asking me where he is to kill him. And he could have, not told him the truth, because he knows that this person is actually going to kill him. But he says he feels suddenly one big sense of, oh, I'm so truthful. And he reveals where the other person is, and then this person goes and kills him. But he incurs the karma for it, the sin for it, because there's a we have to understand about, when we're talking about speaking the truth also, there are a lot of intricacies which are very tough to understand. I think when we are totally in Shuddha Sattva Gun, where anything we do, we offer it to Krishna, we won't have, these things won't happen. But otherwise, speaking truthfully has so many different elements. And again, like I told you, Sarva Dharman Parityajya, for Krishna, give up everything. So speech in Shuddha Sattva, in the best speech is like what we are all doing. We're singing the glories of God. So in the mode of goodness, you will be very truthful, pleasing, beneficial, or you'll only talk that passion. People in passion is very manipulative. Okay, if I say this is going to be the impact, and this is how I should speak to this person, and they're always into gossip, and and they, as per their own selfish needs, they are so bothered about it, and they're hardly close to Sattva Gun or to Shuddha Sattva. People in ignorance, they are openly just lying. Their speech will be agitating, it will be harming, and they're least bothered. So they are there in the mode of ignorance. So the life lesson is you have to apply the sound filters. Before you open your mouth and utter something, you have to think, is it true? Is it pleasing? Is it beneficial? Otherwise, just don't, speak. In fact, Krishna says that you should speak, but what should you speak about Krishna? You just speak about Krishna, because he wants you to all the time think of. He's very possessive. Rashmi Mataji keeps saying, Krishna is, he says, yeah, that's it. You have to give everything to me, me. He says that. And that's what we should be doing, because we want to go, we haven't had enough of the material world. We want to go back to our spiritual home with Krishna. And now Krishna talks about the austerity of the mind. He says those who are in the goodness mode, they are sat in their mind, they'll be satisfied and content with everything. No complaining, no grudges. Whatever happens, Krishna's will. I accept Krishna's will. They accept everything as Krishna's will. So they're at peace. Those who are in mode of passion, their mind, they're dissatisfied, they're always anxious. They're running after a carrot. And they think that, it's going to give them permanent happiness. Whereas a little bit of thought will immediately tell you that no happiness in this material world is permanent. So it's all not real, because if it's not permanent, it's not there. It's just temporary. Everything is just temporary. And so they will be forever dissatisfied and anxious. And those who know the ignorance, they are simply bewildered. They're illusion. Ignorant people believes I am the body, and he's always doing things to pleasure the body, for the pleasure of the body. And where is the pleasure? It's all temporary. And in the verse 17.16, Krishna says, and serenity, simplicity, gravity, self-control and purity of thought are the austerities of the mind. So mind also we have, Krishna is telling us how we should have austerity of the mind. Our thoughts itself, the moment the thoughts come, we allow it to enter, and we feel those, and then we act according to it. So Aisvarya Mataji talks about thinking, what is that? Thinking, feeling and willing. So you have to allow you have to filter that thought. You have to only allow those serene, simple thoughts which are related to self-control. You have to have pure thoughts. And this famous picture of story of Vyasadeva, it must have come before, probably you would have come across it. Story of Vyasadeva and Sukadev Goswami, where Vyasadeva was running after his son Putra, and since as soon as Sukadev Goswami is born, he starts running away at the age of 16. He starts running away, and he's a very purely enlightened. He's so pure. And when a set of beautiful damsels, they were taking bath, and they see Vyasadeva, they cover themselves up. But earlier, when they had seen Sukadev Goswami running, he was so pure. They didn't feel the need to cover themselves or anything. So this explains that and actually Vyasadeva is the one who explains the Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. This is just an introduction of Vyasadeva. And so this little incident reveals that when you're in the mode of, your austerity of your mind is at the highest and you have a pure mind, nothing distracts you anyway. But it is always good, everybody should be like the tortoise. I always think, bring yourself inside the moment you have sense objects, because it's very difficult. The sense organs are very, very easily, they will carry you away. We have many instances of that. In 17.17, Krishna starts speaking about the austerities in the mode of goodness. So now he has spoken about the types of austerities. He spoke about austerity of the body, then austerity of the words, and then austerity of the mind. And now he talks about 3 types of austerity. Kirti Mataji, if you're there.
Yes, Mataji, Hare Krishna. Shraddhaya paraya taptam tapastat trividham naraihi aphalakankshibhiryuktai satvikam parichakshate.
So this threefold austerity practiced by men whose aim is not to benefit themselves materially but to please the Supreme is of the nature of goodness. So now Lakshmi Mataji is gone for this Vrindavan Parikrama. So all these different austerities where you go to these different, holy places of worship, you go there, and any other austerity which is related to pleasing the Supreme Lord, those are austerities in the mode of goodness.
Satkaramana pujartam tapodhambena chaivayat kriyate tad iha proktam rajasam chalamadhruvam.
Yeah, and those austerities which are ostentatious, performed in order to gain respect, honor, and reverence, are said to be in the mode of passion. They are neither stable nor permanent. So here I'm reminded of, when you're doing something, if we are doing it for some benefit, even little bit for material benefit, then that becomes a waste. It's not stable. It's not permanent, which we come to know in these last verses of chapter 17.
Mudagrahenatmana yat pidaya kriyate tapaha parasyot sadhartanam va tattamasam udahrutam.
And those penances and austerities which are performed foolishly by means of obstinate self-torture or to destroy or injure others, are said to be in the mode of ignorance. So we have this example of Hiranyakashipu, who does such a lot of austerity, and his only purpose is that he wants to be like God, and he doesn't want anybody to worship the God, and so we have the result where he asks for this boon and all that, right? So that is penance performed out of foolishness. And
दात दातव्यम् इति यद्दानं दीयते नुपकारिणे देशे काले च पात्रे च तद्दानं सात्विकं स्मृतम्.
Now, Krishna is telling us about charity. So, from 17.20, he starts speaking about charity. He says that gift which is given out of duty at the proper time and place to a worthy person without any expectation of return is charity in the mode of goodness. So, here we can see a Prabhuji is distributing the books of Srila Prabhupada. So, what does he get out of it? He's just doing it because he has that concern and compassion for the people in the material world who are so lost, right? They don't know the goal of life. They haven't read the manual of our human life, the Bhagavad Gita. So they are doing this with, at the proper, they're doing it out of duty for Krishna, for Srila Prabhupada. They're doing it to spread the message of Srila Prabhupada, right? So that is charity performed in the mode of goodness.
आदेशकाले यद्दानम् अपात्रेभ्यश्च दीयते असत्कृतम् अवज्ञातं तत्तामसम् उदाहृतम्.
Thank you, Mataji. So this is charity performed at an improper place and time and given to unworthy persons without respect and with contempt is charity in the mode of ignorance. So we miss charity in the mode of, we miss charity in the mode of passion actually. But charity performed with expectation of some return. Some people, they will do a lot of charity. I have actually had an opportunity to see how a politician had done such a lot of charity during the COVID time, but he was constantly conscious that it's all being captured by the camera and it's being spoken about in the news. And like how you can see here, you do a charity and you want people to know about it, or or sometimes you do charity just in a grudging, somebody's asking, okay, go take it. So this kind of charity is in the mode of passion. You want to also read this one, Kirti Mataji?
Yes, Mataji, Hare Krishna. यत्तु प्रत्युपकारार्थं फलम् उद्दिश्य वा पुनः दीयते च परिक्लिष्टं तद्दानं राजसं स्मृतम्.
Yes. So Krishna spoke about charity in the mode of passion, charity in the mode of goodness, charity in the mode of passion, and then charity in the mode of ignorance, where you are giving it. Some people, you just see some beggar or somebody, you just give it without even thinking that he's going to simply use it to have some drugs. And here he's openly saying, I need money for weed. And if somebody feels sympathy and just gives him that, he's actually doing the charity in the mode of ignorance, and it is useless. So Krishna speaks about how you should be doing charity as well. And now in the final part of this chapter 17, Krishna is going to talk about the Lord. He says the Lord is a bestower of all benediction. If someone gives something to the Lord, he's not the loser. He is gained by 1,000,000 times. So when we do anything for Krishna, Krishna reciprocates. So we have this here, we can see Sudama's story, and how whenever you do anything for Krishna, Krishna will give it to you in, multiple, he will multiply it and give it to you. And so use all your resources only to enhance the mission of the Supreme, of Krishna, of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of Srila Prabhupada. Let's all become, everybody in this group has been, I think many of you have been listening to Rashmi Mataji. Let's all keep chanting. Let's all try to get opportunities to talk about Krishna. I would like to, it would be nice when we keep on speaking about Krishna and spreading this message, because that is a goal of life, and that is the best charity that we can do. Not only resources, you can use your talents and your abilities. If you can sing, if you can draw, if you're good at speaking, whatever you're good at, offer it to Krishna. I'm a teacher. So when I'm speaking to children also, if I get any opportunity to relate it to Krishna, I really try to do that, So although I'm just a beginner, I'm just trying. And so we just try to all the time offer whatever we do. It should be for the pleasure of Krishna. Offer it to Krishna. So in 17.23, it says, from the beginning of creation, the 3 syllables. Now Krishna is concluding with the description of Om Tat Sat. He says the 3 syllables, Om Tat Sat, has been used to indicate the supreme absolute truth Brahman. They were uttered by Brahmanas while chanting Vedic hymns and during sacrifices for the satisfaction of Supreme. Now Mr. Prabhu used to say that some people said in the Vedas there is no reference of Krishna. but they don't understand that the word Om represents Krishna, and there is no hymn which doesn't have Om in it. So, Hari Om, that's everything has to be offered to Krishna first, whatever you do, otherwise it's useless. So, Om means Vishnu. It helps one to remember the Lord. Om itself means Vishnu or Krishna. Tat describes detached work for the sake of liberation. Tat, I'm offering everything to you. It's a detached work. It's for the sake of liberation. Sat is when you dedicate to activity for the pleasure of the Lord and his devotees with the knowledge of the reality. What is your actual constitutional position? I am the servant of the Lord. The Lord is super soul. He is the Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasa. He is the person who will enjoy all the yajnas. He is the supreme Purusha. We are all actually, just here to serve Krishna and for his pleasure. If you understand this, you become actually happy. If you understand this, that is the ultimate source of happiness. So from the beginning of creation, the three words Om Tat Sat were used to indicate absolute truth. These three symbolic representations were used by Brahmanas. Okay, we have done this from Bhagavad Gita 23. We have finished. And now moving on to 17.24. The transcendentalists, therefore, they do different sacrifices, charities, penances, and they always begin with Om to attain the supreme. So Om Tat Vishnu Paramam Padam is there in Rig Veda 1.22.20, which means that Om is Vishnu. It is placed at the beginning of Vedic hymns to indicate the supreme goal. And factually, the transcendentalist sound Omkara, although it's a combination of three letters, has transcendental potency, and one who chants Omkara will very soon realize Omkara and Lord Vishnu to be non-different. It's given in Chaitanya Charitamrit, the Adi chapters, 7.128. We are this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is explaining this to us, that how Omkara is nothing but Vishnu himself. And we have Hare Krishna Mahamantra, like the word Krishna keeps on coming so many times. So we are, of course, remembering Krishna, the Lord, Supreme Lord, all the time when we are chanting. And 17.25, we have one should perform sacrifice, penance, and charity with the word Tat. That is the purpose of such transcendental activities is to get free from material entanglement. Tat Tvamasi is given in the Chandogya Upanishad 6.8.7. Tat is basically detached work for the sake of liberation. Activities done with disregard for material results. It's very tough, actually, I must say, to have this emotion of Nadhanam Najanam Nasundarim, having no interest at all and giving it entirely with the spirit of surrender. But that is the highest goal we have to reach. In 17.26 and 27, we are concluding almost. Absolute truth is the objective of devotional service. It is indicated by the word Sat. These works of sacrifice, of penance, and charity, true to the absolute nature, performed to please the Supreme Person, O son of Pritha. So Krishna is talking about how the objective of any devotional sacrifice is to please the Supreme Person. Sad eva saumya, Chandogya Upanishad 6.2.1. Sat means eternal activities done for the service of the Lord reveal the true spiritual nature. In such activity, the performer of action becomes eternal. That's a beautiful thing. What you're doing becomes transcendental. You become transcendental. You become true as you get all the qualities described in chapter 16. You gradually get the qualities which are divine, and the activities are aimed at the eternal, and the benefits of the activities also become eternal. And Krishna will explain here, but then he tells you, if you're not doing it for Krishna, sacrifices, austerities, charities, oh, you're doing everything so well. But if it's performed without faith in Krishna, the Supreme, then nothing, they are non-permanent, useless. O son of Pritha, regardless of whatever rites are performed, they become asat, useless, both in this life and the next. So unless you're able to understand Krishna and perform everything for Krishna, any great thing you do is useless. This is what is the conclusion of chapter 17. And so quickly going through the chapter 17, it begins with Arjuna's inquiry about unauthorized worship. Ye shastram vidham utsrujya. Krishna will answer Trividham Bhavati Shraddha. He says that there are three modes of faith also. Then he talks about Ayu Sattva Balarogya. So even food he talks about, how you can be strong. What kind of food should you eat so that you have a longer life, you have a happy life. Food, what you eat is what you are. And then he talks about the sacrifices in three modes. Aphalang Kang Shibhir Yagnyu. So even sacrifices should be with no desire of phal, aphala. Three kinds of austerity. He says Pujanam Shaucha Marjanam. So again, even austerity are of three kinds, which is the body, mind, and the body speech and mind, and then charity, the three kinds of austerity, and then the charity in the three modes. And finally, he talks about Om Tat Sat, where he says that sacrifice, charity, and austerity should be offered to Supreme, otherwise it is useless. Om Tat Sat Iti Nirdesho. That's how the beautiful chapter 17 is over. Thank you, dear devotees, for staying with me and listening. And let's do a quick revision on the request of some devotees. I would like to revise all the chapters since we have come to the end of the Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 1 to 6 was all about karma. It's basically about karma or action, and on the platform of knowledge, what it is. And so there's a little bit of jnana as well, and perfection of actions performed to please the Lord is bhakti. All these are touched upon in chapters 1 to 6. And then in chapter 7 to 12 is predominantly bhakti yoga. And now we are in the jnana yoga section with chapter 13 to 18, where Krishna talks the perfection of jnana is basically again bhakti yoga. So it comes back to boils down to bhakti yoga only. So let's revise all the chapters quickly. Let's just go through the whole Bhagavad Gita very fast. So in chapter 1, we are introduced to the whole background of the war, which is where the Bhagavad Gita is spoken, and how Arjuna gets all these doubts. And most importantly, we come to know about the three reactions of the three main people in the battlefield of the Kurukshetra. We come to know that how Dhritarashtra is in the tamasic mode. He is entirely blinded. He is so attached to his son Duryodhana that he cannot even tell him, "Come on, just stop this nonsense. And this throne is not for you. It's not for us." He is not able to say that this is your duty. He's so attached. He's totally tamasic. Krishna comes in front of him. He can't even understand that this is the Lord. And when Krishna speaks, he says, "Oh, I understand everything you say, but then after you finish speaking, then it's all over." He really doesn't follow. He's so tamasic. And then Duryodhana, he's so rajshik. He's so mad after these wealth and possessions and glory and everything. He he doesn't even think twice to do anything wrong. He performs all the different sins, which one for which one deserves a death penalty. He does all of them. And Arjuna is in the sattvic mode. We can see how he's so compassionate. First, he pays obeisances to his guru, and then he asks Krishna that take me to the middle, and he sees everyone. He's so heartbroken. He's so compassionate. He gives all the reasons which are related to thinking about the future and everything. But actually, he doesn't display that Shuddha Sattva, and Krishna uses his opportunity. Krishna actually creates this opportunity in the battlefield to give the Gita, so that so many years after we are still able to discuss it, and it's got such a lot of power. So in chapter 1, we come to know about these three people, how clearly every word is deciphered and explained so beautifully in the ISKCON Mangalore. When you listen to these different courses, it's so beautifully explained in chapter 1. Coming to chapter 2, it's actually a summary of the entire Bhagavad Gita, where where Krishna talks about, he answers all the 5 questions of Arjuna. The questions where Arjuna says, "Why do I want to fight? I don't want to." And all of them are answered here, within one chapter, just a little bit in chapter 3, and he covers all of these. He solves all of Arjuna's doubts in the battlefield. So from 2.1 to 2.10, we have Arjuna's doubts, and then his surrender. In 2.7, we have Arjuna says, "Karpanya dosho kahata svabhava pricchami tvam dharma samudha cheta yachreyasya nishchitam druhitan me shishyasiham shadimam tvam prapannam." So here Arjuna is given himself fully. Krishna is a great teacher. He doesn't open his mouth and start speaking the Gita even before, moment Arjuna says, "I don't want to fight." He actually waits for Arjuna to surrender. So unless we come to this mode of Arjuna's, how he's feeling, that mode of complete surrender, you cannot understand the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita will be just like how it is for the Dhritarashtra for you, unless you come to the state of surrender that Arjuna came to. Only after that Bhagavad Gita have any meaning for anyone. From 2.11 to 2.30, it is Jnana. Krishna speaks about that there is no death for the soul. He explains the soul in so many. There are, I have noted down, there are almost 30 different things he talks about the soul. He says it's eternal, it does not change, it's indestructible, imperishable, immeasurable. It cannot be slain. There is no birth and death for the soul. It's like it goes on. Ajan, and there is no birth. It is ever existing. It's primeval, insoluble, and so many things. Krishna explains the soul in great detail in chapter 2. And ever you feel, that I'm not able to feel I am the soul, just read this chapter 2. You will have the greatest description. Then Krishna says, he explains Karma Kanda, he says, fight. He actually tells Arjuna that if you don't fight, you think that, everybody will say, wow, Arjuna is so compassionate. They're not going to say that. They are going to make fun of you. They say you ran away. And that will be the worst thing for a Kshatriya. So Krishna says that fight. For gains come from dutiful fighting and losses come from not fighting. You have to do your duty. And then he says in 2.39-53, he talks about Nishkam Karma Yoga. Fight, fine. But don't get attached to the reaction. Have a Nishkam Karma Yoga. Follow Nishkam Karma. And then the final verses, I love these verses of chapter 2, where what is Sthita Pragya? Krishna will explain so beautifully who is a Sthitadhir Muni. One who is fixed in Krishna consciousness, all the time thinking of Krishna, giving everything to Krishna. And then I love those verses, in chapter 2, which speaks about the 8 steps to failure. I haven't put that slide here. There are those 8 steps which come. Anybody remembers? Dhyayato Vishayan Punsa, Dhyayato Vishayan Punsa, Sange Seshu Pajayate, Sangat Sanjayate, Kama, Kama Krodho Vijayate, Krodhat Bhavati Sanmoha, Sammohat Smriti Vibrahma, Smriti Bhanshat Buddhinashu, Buddhinashat Pranashati. If you constantly think of anything, you will get attached to it, then you will become lusty, you will be delusion, your memory will be lost, and then you will fall down. From that spiritual state of mind, you will simply fall down. So don't be attached. Fix yourself instead of fixing yourself in all these things and people around you and these things around you. Simply fix yourself in Krishna consciousness and enjoy the higher taste. And then you will get all the qualities of being a self-realized soul in this body itself. So in chapter 2, we learn Krishna gives all these answers. So when Arjuna says compassion, I feel compassionate. Then Krishna says, why? We are not the body. So he's giving the Gyan Yoga and Sankhya Yoga over here when he describes the soul. And when Arjuna says, no enjoyment, I will not enjoy if I win or if I lose also. And Krishna says, you want to enjoy? Well, you're going to get heaven if you die fighting. And if you don't die, you're going to get the kingdom. So he gives a karma kand. He explains about karma kand. Fine. If you want to enjoy, there's enjoyment in both. Fear or sinful activities. Oh, I'm so afraid there's going to be sin. Krishna says buddhi yoga. He says devotional activity, no sin. If you're doing anything for Krishna, there is no sin. It's amazing. It becomes akarma. There's a whole description of, vikarma, karma and akarma, where you do something for some fruitive results. Then you're a karma kandi. Then you're getting all the fruits. You go to the heavenly planets. And then after many, many, many years of enjoying all the sensual pleasures, you come back to the earth. You don't want to come back, right? So then, and those who are doing any sinful activities, they go down to the lower planets. You do demoniac things, like in chapter 16, Krishna says, I will put you down. You will go on, be born in the different lower planets and keep on taking new bodies. You want that, do that. So then that is what Krishna is speaking about when you're about karma and vikarma. And he says, come to akarma, come on. Do everything for Krishna. Then you will reach a state where there is no sin. You don't have any more accumulation of karma. And every time you chant, every time your sins are getting burnt away. You come in association of pure devotees, your sins are getting burnt away. Do that. That's what Krishna is saying. Come on. Do that. The highest. He reveals in Bhagavad Gita the highest, thing that we should do. When Arjuna says destruction of family tradition, Krishna says, what? Destruction of family tradition? If you are going to run away, people are going to follow you. They say, oh, Arjuna ran away from the battlefield. I can also do that. I am feeling so, weak and all that. And so then you can do, they will follow you. So most important thing you should remember is that be a role model. Why? Only then you're actually going to be preventing Varna Shankara. So Krishna gives a reason for that. He talks about Karma Yoga from 3.18 to 3.26. Then in chapter 2 at the end and beginning of chapter 3, Arjuna speaks about indecision. I am not able to decide. He says, I can't decide. And then Krishna says, just be determined and serve the Lord. So what is Karma Kanda in Gita? I've just explained Karma Kanda. It's a section of the Vedas that tells us about the rituals, ceremonies, and actions which you perform, which leads to enjoyment and power. But then he talks about coming to Buddhi Yoga. Buddhi Yoga is the same as when you're giving up all your actions, right? So Karma Yoga. There's a difference between Karma and Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is when you attach whatever you do to Krishna. So Karma Yoga and then Bhakti Yoga is the highest form where you're always, having the loving relationship with Krishna. You are able to understand Krishna. The Supreme Lord is actually a person. He's a person. I can talk to him. He will come to me if I'm going to, with so much of feeling, if I'm able to reach and call out to him. If my japa is so pure, he will come. He will come. So in chapter 3, after that, we learn about the dealing with the confusion. Krishna talks about the confusion, like we said. From Karma Kanda, he talks about how to come to Karma Yoga. So he actually gives us a yoga ladder. In this chapter 3, he gives us a yoga ladder, Pravritin Chakra. He talks about from 3.10 to 3.16, the yoga ladder. 3.17 to 35, he talks about Nishkam Karma. He says that act dutifully with detachment. And then he gives a very important message in the end of chapter 3. He says, what is the greatest enemy? So Arjuna is actually asking here that, why is it that we know that something is wrong and we do? Actually, if you see in this world, I have always, felt that anybody who's doing something wrong, it's not like they don't know that what they're doing. They know it very well. But why is it doing it? Simply, Krishna says, because of lust. Beware of lust and anger. That will lead you to do what is wrong. It will force you. You will be impelled to do it. So beware of the greatest enemy. And if you want to be aware of it, you should know where it lies. And Krishna actually tells you it lies in your mind, intelligence, and senses. So he actually tells you what are the sitting places of lust? Your mind, your intelligence, and senses. Be careful. The moment it will come, it will capture you, and then you'll be led to do the wrong things. So karma or work is better. So the quick recap of this is progress in spiritual path is the karma is better than renunciation. First of all, Krishna makes it very clear. People think, oh, Gita, go become a sannyasi, sit in the forest. No. Krishna says, do work. Work is better than renunciation. Karma, and how should the karma be? Pious, whether it's when you're doing the karma stage, some is pious, some are pious, some are impious. And you're doing it in the body platform. So you will get the good results or bad results. Now, when the karma kandas are those who follow the Vedas, and then they do all these duties, but they're not surrendering the results. So they are still wanting to, in some way they want to enjoy, but they're in the karma kanda stage. The sakama karma yoga is when there is, you're doing your duties with complete surrender of results to Krishna. Nishkama karma is when you perform your duties and surrender your results to Krishna. Sakam is when there is still, sakam is when there is still a kams attached. And nishkam is when there are no more, you surrender all your results. Shifting in attitude will lead you to Krishna consciousness. So then once more quickly, chapter 3, it's about renunciation, the yoga ladder, the exemplary lifestyle, be a role model, and the biggest challenge of spiritual life, lust. Conquering lust, which is the greatest enemy. Then next we come to, Ekam Vada. This is the same chapter 3. And we also have the reference of this, like I told you yesterday, I was talking about, I love this cycle of sacrifice, where, we learn so many cycles in science, the water cycle and nitrogen cycle and all that. We don't know the subtleties of the soul and the relationship with the soul and the super soul and the presence of all these demigods who are supposed to facilitate. They're the managers or administrators. We don't know all these relationships. Science cannot discover them. The soul is just 1 by 10,000 tip of the hair of, so they don't discover. They are not able to see it. So the Lord has given us Vedas. Vedas are the Lord himself. And then it tells us about our duties. And then when we are performing the sacrifices, that is when it gives us rain or prosperity, which gives us grain, and the food comes from that, and the food we have to offer to Krishna. So this is a cycle of sacrifice, and I really, for some time in the beginning, I used to wonder, and the more and more I listen to it, actually in chapter 4, there's this description of sacrifice in so many ways. I'll never tire of listening to it. It never fails to, I keep this feeling that there is so much to understand. The Gita is so vast. There's so much to understand. Every time you read, the new revelation comes. In chapter 4, this is transcendental yoga. So in chapter 4, we talk about the Sanatan yoga, or we talk about, transcendental yoga, where Krishna talks about, first of all, he explains his position. We come to know about the transcendental knowledge of Krishna comes from, he first reveals it to the sun, and we come to know how that it's important to be in the, traditional, the line should not be broken. For example, the plug, if it is only plugged, will the light come on? Similarly, if you just keep on listening to Gita, which is not from authentic source, then you don't get it. You just don't get it. And then from 4.11 to 24, Krishna talks about applying this knowledge, sacrifices related to transcendental knowledge, and the entire process. So Krishna will talk about, this is where from 4.25 to 42, Krishna talks about the different sacrifices. So when we are reading the Gita, Krishna is saying that when we are trying to decipher the Gita, we are also doing a sacrifice. We are trying to use our intelligence, our knowledge. We are trying to understand Krishna. So, coming back to this, the summary. Now let's look at chapter 5 summary. In chapter 5, Krishna is talking about, then we talk about the karma sannyasa yoga. So again, from chapter 3, karma yoga, now karma sannyasa yoga. That is, he says that the nishkama karma yoga, KY is for karma yoga, is easier than renouncing work. And then he says how to perform nishkam karma yoga. And in chapter 5, Krishna will talk about, he'll talk about platform of knowledge, knowing the three doers. What are the three doers? The soul, the material modes of nature, and the super soul. There are these three doers. And then he talks about liberation by focus on the super soul, liberation through Ashtanga Yoga. And he gives a slight introduction. Chapter 6 is fully about Ashtanga Yoga. In chapter 5, he will give a brief 5.27-28 to give an introduction to Ashtanga Yoga. And then the 5.29 is a beautiful one, which is, I think I put that slide, the peace formula, where Krishna talks about, he is a supreme enjoy, Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasa. And he says, Krishna is supreme control. I am the one who controls everything. I am like, he talks about in chapter 7, how he talks about he is a string on which all the beads are there, rests on him. So everything rests on Krishna. And best part is, he says, I am Suhridam, right? Suhridam Sarva Bhutana. I am the only well-wishing friend. You know, your mother is there, your father is there, your teacher is there. They all wish well for you. But can they be there all the time? You are in great danger. Nobody is there for you. No one can do anything for you. Who can do? Krishna. You know, so Draupadi, when her sari was being pulled away, when she put her hands up and Krishna, when she called out to Krishna, I think she said Govinda. What did she say? Govinda. And then Krishna after that appears, right? Yeah. So then chapter 6 summary is very simple. Chapter 6, we come to know Krishna talks about mind. Is it your enemy or is it your friend? You know, if you're able to have control over your mind, it becomes your friend. Otherwise, it will be your enemy. It will just go after the senses and sense organs, and you're just running behind everything, like like a fool. And A stands for easy. Chapter 6 is easy. A stands for Ashtanga Yoga, and then we have Arjuna himself saying, "Oh no, this is not for me. I can't do it." Arjuna himself is saying that he can't. Who are we to even try? Think about it. And S stands for success or failure. And then Krishna talks about Arjuna is actually asking what happens, if somebody is doing such a lot of austerities but doesn't reach the final destination. Neither is he having any material gain or a spiritual gain. What happens? And then Krishna will explain so beautifully, so beautifully, that nobody in the spiritual world, there is, in these spiritual endeavors, there is nothing which has gone waste. Every little endeavor is useful. It's not like you become a doctor in one birth, the next birth you have to start studying from ABC and then go to the whole school process in college. In the spiritual knowledge, whatever you have, you gain in this birth, the next birth you start from there. You're born in transcendental family, or you're born in a family where it's conducive to continue your spiritual growth. So he says nothing is a waste, nothing to worry about. And Y stands for the topmost yoga, which is the Bhakti Yoga. So then the ladder is given in 6.3 very beautifully. Karma Kanda is a fruitive worker. Karma Yoga renounce the fruits. Jnana Yoga renounce the fruits, and then you're having knowledge, and then you get the Brahman realization. Ashtanga Yoga, where you get the Paramatma realization, where you're renouncing your fruits. You start having control over your mind and senses because you follow the tough eightfold path, and then you're meditating, and then you realize this Paramatma within your heart. And Bhakti Yoga is a loving devotional service. We are so fortunate. Thanks to Srila Prabhupada that we're able to straight away understand Bhakti Yoga. Straight away we're able to reach that stage of loving devotional service. We're able to listen and hear the Gita and Bhagavatam. And in this chapter 7, we are talking about mainly about the energies. So we learn about the glories and the knowledge of Krishna. Then we come to know about the energy, surrendering unto Krishna, and demigod worship. In chapter 7, Krishna explains very well. Actually, if you want to know what is demigod worship, you can read verses chapter 7.20 to 7.25. And then finally, he talks about how we can move from delusion to devotion in the last verses of chapter 7. I like chapter 7 also. Chapter 8 is again my favorite chapter. It's about death. So, we are always preparing for an exam, this exam, that exam, but we forget that the most important exam is death. And we don't even think, we know that everyone dies. I'm also going to die, but I don't think about it. Yudhishthira says, what is the most amazing thing? The most amazing thing in this universe is that we know that there is death, but we are not, we think, oh, it's not for me. Oh, others are dying. He is dying, she is dying. I'm not going to die. So, remembering Krishna at the time of death is the most important thing. Here we have this beautiful picture of Bhishma Dev. Oh, Bhishma Dev is so fortunate. We are actually doing Bhishma Dev's prayers, we are reading. And the prayers are so beautiful. where Bhishma is able to see Krishna, and he's seeing Krishna at the moment of his death. Krishna arranges for everyone to come there at the moment of his death, when he knows it's time for Bhishma to go. And remembering Krishna by Yoga Mishra Bhakti, remembering Krishna by pure Bhakti. So actually in this chapter, Krishna will reveal about how the different ways people will die and where all they will go. And then he ultimately says, if you're in pure Bhakti, no worries. Just be in Bhakti, you will reach Krishna Loka. So, and in chapter 9, which is Raja Guhya Vidya Yoga, this Raja Vidya, it is extremely secret. So, why is it secret? Because everybody cannot understand it. It's the most confidential knowledge. And it is, here Krishna speaks about, he's revealing about his Aishwarya, he gives Aishwarya Jnana. He talks about his relationship with the world in great detail. It is inconceivable for us. And then he talks about the different types of worshippers. He explains, the different types of worshippers in verses 9.11 to 9.25. And then finally, he will talk about the glories of Krishna Bhakti. So that's why it is so confidential. He talks about, like Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. Simply just give some flower and leaf of fruit, to Krishna. He's going to be happy. And if you please Krishna, it pleases the world. And it gives you freedom from miseries. It gives you an eternal life of happiness. What more do you want? Then in chapter 10, we have the Chatushloki, the 3 steps to progress. So the Sambandha, he teaches us about relationship with Krishna. We learn about the relationship with Krishna, Abhideya, the process, how, chanting, and the Prayojana, what is the goal, the ultimate goal. So what is the goal? Develop love for Krishna. And you become knowledgeable. He talks in 10.10 and 10.11 that when you are, giving yourself to Krishna, he will come as a little light, and he will tell you the goal. He will reveal himself to you. And then the process Abhideya, the devotee has to simply surrender. Thoughts of the pure devotees are always in him, and their life is fully devoted. They only want to talk and think about Krishna. And then, then Sambandha is when you know the relationship with Krishna. The source of everything is Krishna. The source of knowledge is Krishna. That is, so this is what he talks about in the Chatushloki. So after giving the Chatushloki, Arjuna will accept Krishna's supreme position, and then Krishna will describe his vibhutis. It's very nice to constantly read these verses 10.19 to 10.42, where Krishna talks about all his vibhutis. It helps us to remember Krishna all the time when we hear Krishna's vibhutis. He is a sun, he is a moon, he is the ocean, he is the among all the demons, he is the Prahlada. Anything which has got splendor or power, Krishna is there in him. And in fact, the best part is at the end of the chapter when Krishna says, you know what, all these things I've described are just a small spark of my splendor. So imagine how huge is the splendor of Krishna when his small spark is, the entire sun and the moon, everything together is just a small spark. So it helps us, to really increase in our bhakti. And chapter 11, so chapter 10 is like the theory he's explaining, and chapter 11, Arjuna says, oh, you're explaining so much. I want to see. Come on, show it to me. I want to see. For whom is he doing that? He's actually already convinced, but he's doing it for the sake of the world. That Krishna is God, and people will be able to accept the Bhagavad Gita as a word of the Lord. So that is why Arjuna does it for our benefit. He says that, okay, it's a Lord Krishna, and then he reveals the universal form. And Sanjay describes Arjuna's vision, and Arjuna is experiencing the whole vision. And Krishna's reply is finally, Krishna says, you just have to be my instrument. I've shown you the past, present, and future. You've seen all the entire Kaurava clan is entering into the fiery mouths of Krishna. And then Arjuna says, oh my God, enough. I don't want to see any more. And then he says, I want to see your beautiful two-handed form, your four-handed Paramatma form, and your two-handed form. And Arjuna is so fortunate, most fortunate. He's seen Krishna and he knows Krishna is God. And there are so many who saw Krishna, but they didn't know Krishna is God. So in chapter 11, we have Arjuna's request. Drashtum Ikshami Tute Rupam. Then Lord Krishna describes his universal form. Bahuni Adrishta Purvani. Arjuna's vision of the universal form. Aneka Adbhuta Darshanam. Anek Adbhuta Darshanam. So amazing. And then Arjuna's experience of it. Dhritam na Vindami Samam cha Vishnu. And Krishna's reply, Kalosmi. So when Arjuna says, oh my God, who are you? I can't understand. I'm so confused. Who are you? And Krishna says, Kalosmi, I am time. Loka Kshaya Krita Pravriddho. And Arjuna's prayers, after that, Arjuna's prayers are very beautiful again. Pure bhakti is needed for seeing Krishna. And then in chapter 12 is the bhakti. I love the last verses of this, the Priyashtakam from 12.13 to 12.20. It begins with bhakti over impersonalism. And then Krishna describes again the stages. He starts with the highest stage of devotion, which is pure bhakti. prema bhakti, and then he comes down, okay, if you can't do, if you are not able to be in prema bhakti, then what? Then what? Then give your action. Okay, at least do something good. And if you can't even do something good, okay, fine, do meditation. Then he says, actually, meditation is higher. So then he goes back up the ladder. And then he speaks about what he likes. He says qualities that are dear to him. And you should study those verses. We must learn it up by heart. And so he talks about the top three. Ananya Bhakti is the highest. Sadhana Bhakti next. Nishkama Karma Yoga. These are related to Krishna. Below that, okay, you can't do all this. You don't want Krishna. At least do Sakam Karma. At least do Dhyana. At least, try to increase your Jnana. So these are the things he says. And then in the the Priyashtakam, he talks about who are the dearest to him. He says one who makes Krishna the goal of his life are the dearest of all. Right? So that is what we should all do. In chapter 13 is a little bit related to the Jnana part. And Arjuna asks the 6 tough questions. Krishna describes Kshetra, Kshetragya, Jnanam, the body is a Kshetra, Kshetragya is a knower, and he talks about Jnanam, he talks about the process of acquiring knowledge. Jnayam is object of knowledge. What is knowledge? Krishna. Knowing that Krishna is everything. That's it. If you know that, you don't need to know anything further. Prakriti, Purusha, their union. He talks about Jnana Chakshu, the vision of one who is in knowledge. So Arjuna has 6 questions in chapter 13. Krishna answers Krishna's answers to these come in steps, the different questions are answered by the end. And then he says, you should have the Jnana Chakshu, the vision of knowledge, where you're able to see everyone and everything with the same eye, whether it's a stone or a piece of mud or just gold, or if you're seeing a Chandala, which is lower than the Shudra, or you're seeing a Brahmana, that verse is there, or you're seeing a cow, or you're seeing a dog, you're able to see everything as equal. Get that Jnana Chakshu. And then we have, so these are the 3 modes, the race for predominance, actions in the modes, and pure life. So this is basically chapter 14. In chapter 14, we are first introduced to the 3 modes of material nature in great detail. Again, in chapter 17, now we have done that. So about the 3 modes of nature. Chapter 15 is Purushottam Yoga. Again, a very important chapter. Krishna talks about becoming detached from the material world. He talks about transmigration. Again, he talks about Krishna. He is a maintainer. He says everything he is maintaining, even the digestion. I remember Aisvarya Mataji speaking a few days ago how we are not even able to digest our own food. And so he is basically maintaining everything. And then he is the summary of Vedanta Sutra. He is the person from whom the Vedas come. And then today we have done, yesterday we did chapter 16, we learned about the divine and demoniac qualities, the demoniac nature. Krishna explains in details and he gives us a choice. And today we have done chapter 17, Arjuna's inquiry about unauthorized worship. When the Lord Krishna talks about even faith is of 3 types. He tells us about our lifestyle, how we should eat, the foods. He talks about the kinds of sacrifices, the austerities, and again, so this is we have done in detail. I don't think I need to explain this. And tomorrow we'll be doing in chapter 18 the summary of the whole Gita from verses 18.1 to 18, summary of Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. Oh my God, it's 7:15. So sorry. The modes of nature, ideal worker, love of God, and the end result. And so tomorrow we'll be doing this chapter 18. We'll start a little early. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize the time. Very sorry, devotees. Vancha kalpatarubhyasha kripa sindhubhyevacha kripatitam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. I also have to go to school. Hare Krishna, I lost track of time. Somebody could have asked me to stop. Hare Krishna. We could
Hare
have.
Krishna Mataji, it was so nice.
I'm very sorry for taking your time. So
Mataji,
Hare Krishna
Mataji,
Mataji,
Hare
fantastic
Krishna
session.
Mataji, it was wonderful. Thank you so much. Hare
thank you
Krishna.
so much. Hare Krishna,
Mataji,
Mataji.
very,
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare
Hare
very
Krishna
great
Mataji.
session
Hare
today.
Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Mataji,
Yes,
Mataji, this summarized version would also be put up in the thing,
yes.
class
I will
by
put
Santosh.
all these slides as a PDF, and I've also recorded today. But
Yeah.
give me some days. The recording will take some time for me to send. I'll have to
Okay.
either send it as a Google Drive or as a YouTube link. But the PDF I will send you. I can
Yes,
send it by the
Mataji.
end of the day. Actually,
Mataji, you have beautiful voice.
Yeah.
thank
Hare
you.
Mataji, I want,
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Mataji,
Hare
I have a
Krishna.
small request
Please,
for you.
please
Hare
pray for
Krishna,
me that I
Mataji.
can constantly use my voice and my body in service of Krishna. Thank you, all of you. Hare Krishna. Tomorrow we meet chapter 18. Today we are really late. Hare Krishna. Sorry.
Mataji, only one small request.
Yes.
Small request.
Yes, Prabhuji.
In the morning, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., the other Mataji is taking classes. Rasaprayani Mataji. I request you to take some other class in the day so that we can attend hers as well as yours. both the sessions we can attend.
Prabhuji, I've only
Thank you very
replaced
much.
Lakshmi Mataji. I've only replaced for these 2-3 days. I don't know if I'll get service again. If I get, I'll be really grateful, Prabhuji. I'm just filling in for Lakshmi Mataji going for this.
Thank you, Mataji.
Mantra. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji.